Hello everyone, thank you for joining us in this edition of PNG Tonight. Let's get on with it. A concern for health authorities, and you should be as well. Efforts to arrest and contain the spread of the tuberculosis bacteria continues to be a challenge. This is despite headways made in the diagnosis and treatment of multi-drug resistant cases. Gregory Avira reports.
Tuberculosis remains a major public health threat in Papua New Guinea. According to the World Health Organization, tuberculosis continues to kill more people in the country compared to other types of infectious diseases.
Is a time bomb waiting to go off, and it has major consequences if we can't get the message across that tuberculosis and drug-resistant tuberculosis in particular is an area that needs to be addressed. The country is going to face major problems.
Tackling this issue took a turn for worse in 2014 with a surge in cases of drug-resistant forms of the disease. This prompted the government to set up an emergency response team in August of that same year. The effort in combating this health threat has since gained additional support from international health organizations. The Western Pacific Regional Green Light Committee, made up of representatives from global health organizations, was in the country last week to review the progress of implementation of recommendations from its previous monitoring mission in 2015. While the committee has noted significant progress in the diagnosis and treatment of multi-drug resistant and extensively drug-resistant cases, containing the transmission of the disease continues to be a challenge.
I visited Daru and saw significant progress in how patients are diagnosed and how they're treated for multi-drug resistant TB. We also saw progress at other sites. But yet it still remains a crisis in PNG. Multi-drug resistant TB is still very common and is increasingly common. And one of our concerns is we're seeing transmission that's ongoing. It's still occurring in the community, probably occurring in some of our health facilities that we visited while we were here.
An individual can get multi-drug resistant TB in two ways. Firstly, this can occur by direct transmission from person to person when an individual breathes in air containing the TB bacteria. The second is when the initial TB treatment is inadequate. This can happen when patients fail to complete treatment regimes, when the wrong type of drugs are prescribed for treatment, or when substandard drugs are used for treatment. Drug-susceptible TB is the opposite of drug-resistant TB. If an individual is infected with TB bacteria that are fully susceptible, it means that the treatment will be effective. So the committee believes strengthening drug-susceptible TB programs is also another effective measure.
Multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, which is hard to cure, is a man-made problem. It results from poor treatment in the country. So instead of just focusing on MDR-TB, we all feel as a committee that the emergency response should also cover and continue to cover the treatment of the diagnosis and treatment of drug-susceptible cases. That means that the National TB program requires strengthening.
With the committee's recommendations soon to be finalized and submitted, the Health Department and its partners stand ready for the implementation phase.
Special memories never change. All my dreams of yesterday take me back, Calapana way.
While there has been vast amount of technical knowledge shared in combating this issue, the continued support from the state and key partners needs to be maintained.
Interestingly, there's some interesting dynamics that are happening there that need for us to approach it very vigorously and address that, because if we don't, then things could get out of hand. But as you heard from what has been shared, we know what to do, and we are putting in place what the best way forward to approach this. And it's just support that needs to be continued for us to get this on track.
Though tackling this endemic may seem a mammoth task, there is a positive future ahead. Ongoing studies have developed new forms of drugs to combat the various forms of drug-resistant tuberculosis, which the committee believes will greatly improve the effort.
As we get new drugs, however, the excitement in our field is that these new drugs may make these very difficult to cure strains now curable again. And these drugs are out there and they're in study, and so we know that we will have some new tools to use to treat these cases in the future. Today, we're making recommendations based on current WHO guidelines to try to achieve the highest cures possible.
Gregory Avira reporting there. Some good news for councillors throughout Papua New Guinea. The process of getting them onto the payroll and actually paying them has begun. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill informed Parliament this afternoon of this. He was answering questions from the member for Sina Sina Yongomul, Karangakua, on council payments and also the election of council presidents.
But Mr. Speaker, let me answer his question on the issue about council wages. It certainly was an historic decision that this Parliament took and our government took in ensuring that the leaders closest to the people are recognized and paid some sort of remuneration for their efforts that they keep our societies and communities together. Mr. Speaker, there has been some problems with the wages being rolled out. I will get the Minister to make a statement at a later time to give more detail and clarity to his question. But let me say that there has been some delays in payments, partly also been related to the failed elections, where councillors that did not complete the election process, and some disputes around in many provinces throughout the country has also given us some complications. The second issue is that those failed elections were not conducted. There has been some disputes, court cases, all sorts of range of problems that has delayed it. But I'm told by the good treasurer that council's wages were received last week. I'm told some were paid, but I will get the Deputy Prime Minister to make a statement to the floor. On the issue of the election of council presidents, I'm certain that we changed the law in this Parliament that allowed us to revert back to the old system, where the councillors will elect their presidents in the chamber. I think that law has changed, but again, I will get the Deputy Prime Minister to give some clarity on that through that statement that he will make. But there are some provinces, Mr. Speaker, who have made representation to government that they want to keep the same system going. That is that their presidents to be elected by the people directly. We would certainly want some uniformity across the country so that we don't have dual systems working for that level of government. But we will work it through, and I will certainly get the Deputy Prime Minister to make a statement on those two subjects. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Prime Minister Peter O'Neill in Parliament today. After the break, our trade imbalance with Australia.